Folks, the name of our podcast has officially been deemed racially insensitive. So from now on, we will be known as Words with White Privileged Male. Good afternoon and welcome to the podcast. I'm Nick Drago. Today on the show, well, we're not changing our name, but the Indians and Redskins may be, so stick with us because we're going to talk all about that. Plus, we get into all the big storylines going into this year's baseball season, and of course, the coldest game in NFL history. So stick with us, friends, because sports starts now. And welcome to the Sports Podcast with me, your host, Nick Drago. For those of you that are new to the show, welcome. We talk about sports here, usually the games and whatnot that occur over the previous week and what that means for the next week and blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what, people? We have no sports still. But it's okay. We're getting close. They could be coming back soon. So don't worry, because we will have some sports to talk about soon. But we'll have some stuff to talk about tonight. Welcome to our 102nd episode. Isn't that exciting? I'm kind of loving. We're like in the hundreds. We got COVID, so it's not like I have anything better to do all the time. Ever. There's nothing to do. No, it's fine. We actually went to Long Island this weekend and saw my family for the first time in a while, so that was exciting. It was the 4th of July, so we heard all the fireworks firing off everywhere, although it's not like I don't hear it every night in Philly anyway. Thanks, random people in Philadelphia. I really like hearing fireworks every night. And not, at least if I could see them, maybe it'd be better. I don't know. Alright, so all that jizzy jazz. That was my weekend. I hope you guys had a good one too. Sorry, I just kind of snorted into the microphone there. Just ignore that, please, and let's move on to some sports. I want to start by talking about the NHL. So, they haven't finalized a deal yet, but details are emerging on what will likely be announced either tonight or tomorrow as the official rules, deal, whatever plan for the NHL. So right now they're in phase 2 of their little plan to bring hockey back, and that's to get everybody back into the country and quarantine for 2 weeks. There's optional camps going on right now. But next up would be phase 3. And so the plan is phase 3 would start July 13th. That would be training camp. So teams would be in official training camp for about 2 weeks. And then the plan for phase 4 is the actual tournament, the 24-team tournament that we've been talking about. And that would start somewhere between July 25th and August 1st. We have 2 hub cities set up right now. Toronto will be hosting the East. Edmonton will be hosting the West, with the Stanley Cup Finals being played in Edmonton. So that's the plan right now for hockey. The players, actually, they're going to have a chance to opt out if they don't want to play. They don't have to give a reason. They will not be penalized, but they have until 5 p.m. on July 7th. That's Tuesday, to make a decision, and we'll see what happens. I don't think there have been a lot of hockey players coming out saying they won't play. I know there have been multiple positive tests, at least in St. Louis. There were a number of positive tests at their training camp, and there were camps all over the place. I know Toronto, Tampa Bay had a couple cases recently too. And speaking of practice facilities shutting down, the Bucks are the next team on the NBA list that will have to shut down this week. I think the Nuggets, Heat, Clippers, and Nets have all had to do the same in the last couple of days, which kind of stinks because they're trying to get to the hub. I would think at this point, just get everybody in that hub, let it die down, right? and then start your season, right? I'm sorry, when I say the hub, I'm talking about Orlando, where all these teams are going to be playing at the Walt Disney World Center. It's playing, living, the whole shebang. All right, moving on. Washington Redskins. So, FedEx, FedEx owns the naming right to FedEx Field, which is where the Redskins play, is threatening to hold the naming rights or drop them as a sponsor, drop themselves as a sponsor to them. I don't really know how that works. Basically, they're going to disown the Redskins if they don't commit to a name change. And as soon as they said that, Nike also vowed that they will remove all apparel from its website that includes the word Redskins. And that's a good amount of money for the Redskins. Now, they could go one of two ways here. Dan Snyder, the owner, could say, well, screw you, I'll find sponsors my own way and continue on in this super racist name that they somehow can still get away with. Oh, man. Or they can give in to, all the social unrest. Listen, I get it. The Redskins name's been around for a long time. This sort of comes up every couple of years, but the point is that there are people that don't like the name. The thought this weekend came up of, like, where does it end? Do you change the Indians? Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. Do you change the Yankees? Northerners could technically find the term Yankee to be offensive, but they don't. People who wear Red Sox could find the Red Sox to be offensive. But there's a bit of a difference with the negative connotation between the term Redskins and, there's plenty of better ways to honor, the indigenous people of the United States. You could maybe look at the Chiefs for inspiration, although who knows, maybe at some point that will be deemed racist in some way. I don't know. The Blackhawks, I think they do a decent job, and if I'm wrong, please tell me. sports3xpodcast@gmail.com. So just a couple of examples. You could change the name to the Warriors, and in fact, I think that was one of the proposed name changes. I have a whole list here. I know Buckeyes came into it, Warriors, which I think would be a great idea if they brought back the arrow helmet that they had years ago. I don't remember when that was, or it was a spear. It was a spear, not an arrow. Change them to the Warriors, the Buckeyes. My favorite, though, is the Red Tails. A, it would be really easy because you keep the name Red, and B, you're basically doing the opposite of what Redskins was doing, because now instead of putting down a group of people, you're uplifting or talking about, Red Tails is referring to the name of the planes flown by the Tuskegee Airmen during World War II, which was a group of African American pilots. This whole unit of if I recall, I could be wrong about this. There's a whole movie I think it's called Red Tails by George Lucas. Check it out. Actually, I heard it's kind of a crappy movie, but whatever. If you want some history, that's a good way to start. I think Red Tails, to me, is the best way to go. But, they could really go any way they want with this. They could dig in. This comes up every few years, and the Redskins always come out unscathed. It's still around. I think it's different this time because now their sponsors are planning to drop out, and you know how it goes. Follow the money, right? If you're going to lose money, well, just change your name. Although they're going to have to think about how many millions they will have to spend to change their name on every logo, everywhere in the stadium, everything you see. They're going to have to change the name. So, the other team that is in question is the Cleveland Indians. Wait a second. Am I on the wrong thing? Oh, wait. Sorry. I did forget to mention Ron Rivera, who is the coach of the Redskins, by the way, fully on board with the name change. So, there you go. Your own players are calling for it. Your own coach is calling for it. All right, the Cleveland Indians are also talking about changing their names. There's a couple of different names that have floated around. The Spiders, which is connection to the city's short-lived National League franchise from the late 19th century. You have the Cleveland Naps, which would be named after Nap. I always mess this. Nap Lajaway, short for Napoleon. Why not Cleveland Napoleons? No, I could see why people wouldn't like that. Never mind. It's basically their old name, so that wouldn't be a bad option, although nobody would really get it now. The Cleveland Fellers, which would be named after Bob Feller, the author of a legendary baseball, the greatest pitcher in franchise history. Oh, okay, that I guess makes sense. The Cleveland Rockers, because of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Cleveland Crows, because crows are abundant in Ohio, and there's no other team named the Crows. What? All right, that's a little weird. The Cleveland Blue Sox, because they already have a Red Sox and a White Sox. This is getting kind of comical now. This is from a list on CBS, by the way. The Cleveland Cuyahogas, which is named after their local river. The Cleveland Lakers. The Cleveland Union, because of the whole Civil War vibe. The Cleveland Blues. I don't really like that one as much. The Cleveland Cinders. Okay. All right, this is getting silly now. Some silly names on here. Burning River Buckeyes. Everybody wants a Buckeye. Everybody wants the Cleveland Buckeyes. All right, we're gonna. Oh, because there was a. I'm sorry. I'm reading this as I read it to you. But there was a team back in the Negro leagues called the Cleveland Buckeyes, and their hats are actually kind of cool. So yeah, Cleveland has a couple of team names that are interesting. I wasn't. I guess I didn't really think of Indians being racist, but I kind of get it. I mean, Chief Wahoo, I'm glad that they got rid of that, and I actually really like their C. I think they did a good job in changing the logo. It's very subtle. I mean, you could always just change it to Cleveland Warriors, Cleveland Indigenous Peoples. They should actually, I think them and the Redskins should change it to the same name. Maybe they could cut down on costs. They have similar color schemes. They could just use the same logo too, right? That would work. That would be a terrible idea. Don't do that. Don't do it. All right, let's talk about some of the top storylines in Major League Baseball going into this season. So first off, the DH spots. The National League isn't used to using a DH, and they're going to have to for this year. So I'm curious to see what type of strategies they go with here. It's something that these teams aren't necessarily built for, but, they always have that extra hitter that would normally get a day off, maybe play a little more. We'll see. You're going to have prospects that will benefit from expanded rosters. Maybe we'll see some names develop a little bit quicker than we normally would. They didn't say. I think there's new extra inning rules too in baseball, so that's a storyline to keep out for. I'd like to see how the new extra inning rules work. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure exactly what they were. We'll have to look that up. If you know what they are, email me sports3xpodcast@gmail.com. I don't even know if they've announced them yet. A lot of safety protocols, obviously. How are they going to manage COVID when, unlike some of the other leagues who are playing in hubs, baseball's just playing. So a lot more room for exposure there. Sorry, I just hit my microphone. Are you going to hear a lot of people still booing the Astros, or did all of this stuff just supersede that? Because I was at an Astros-Mets spring training game the day before they shut down spring training. I think it was the day before, and people were pretty ticked off at the Astros. So keeping that alive, please do. Are we going to hear more about opt-outs? Some big-name guys, well, somewhat big-name, Ryan Zimmerman, Ian Desmond have already said they're going to be opting out. Will we see more of that? I don't know. And then what do we do if teams experience an outbreak? We don't know about that either. And if you're a Yankee fan like me, what happens if you're getting injured during this kind of spring training 2 period? I think I'm sure there are a lot of people who will be upset. Masahiro Tanaka could have been one of them, my Yankee fans out there. Tanaka was hit on the right side of the head by a 112-mile-per-hour line drive by Giancarlo Stanton. But it's okay. After a couple of tests, it seems that he was diagnosed with mild concussion, and he'll be back soon, so not to worry about, Yankees fans. So yeah, baseball season's just around the corner. I'm really excited. I'm hoping to see some sports soon. We could have it within the next couple of weeks, and that fires me up, friends. All right. So over the last couple of weeks, since we got to episode 100, we've been talking about the greatest moments in sports history. I always cut out these segments too and make a short version on our YouTube page, and so we'll definitely have that as well. So yeah, let's get to it. Let's just get to it. Over the last few weeks, we've been discussing some of the greatest moments in sports history. Today we're on number 23 on our list, and that would be the coldest game in NFL history. 1969. It's the NFL championship game between the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys at Lambeau Field on December 31st. The temperature at game time registered as a frigid 13 degrees below zero. But of course, more than 50,000 fans braved the elements on New Year's Eve to be at the game. Green Bay, of course, is used to playing in colder conditions. Many fans in the stands felt that they had the advantage, and they appeared to have that advantage. Green Bay took an early 14-0 lead. However, Dallas scored a touchdown and a field goal after two Packer fumbles and added another touchdown in the fourth quarter. Now the Packers were behind 17-14 with 4 minutes and 50 seconds left in the game. With 16 seconds remaining on the clock and a temperature reading of 18 degrees below zero, the Packers found themselves just 2 feet away from the end zone. Starr called a timeout where he conferred with Coach Vince Lombardi. The two of them running out of ideas after 2 running plays seemed to go nowhere, and there was no timeouts left on the clock. So with one last action, Starr took a snap from center Ken Bauman. Bauman and Jerry Kramer took out the Dallas tackle Jethro Pugh, and with him out of the way, Starr was able to dash over the line to score the touchdown. He stated, "We ran out of ideas." But when you talk to Vince Lombardi, his quote was, "We gambled and we won." Nonetheless, in the early days of the NFL, games like this were what really drew fans to the sport. The fact that these two teams went out there in 80 degrees below zero and played this game is unbelievable. Something we have not yet seen again in the league. And honestly, I would think they'd be more likely to call a game if it were that cold in today's day and age. Next week, when we discuss our next top sports moment, it will still involve ice, but in a completely different way. No, we'll be moving to the NHL, where we talk about a series where 2 of the greatest to ever play the game went toe-to-toe, scoring tit for tat, and doing some things that we may never see in hockey again. For those interested in more sports moments, just tune into Sports with Nick Drago every week. You can find us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Twitter, or the Facebook. And with that, we're going to call off the show today for a count of rain. I'm just kidding. With that, we're going to end the show as we usually do. Special thanks, as usual, to Johanna Drago. She is the content editor, logo designer, and set designer of this show. The music you hear is a song called Golden Sunrise by Josh Woodward. A link to his website can be found in the show notes. And special thanks, as usual, to our social media warriors, Mary Kay Albert and Gary Albert, and Joe Calabro as well. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in every week. I love it. I love the fans. I love the friendship. And keep it up. What else? I think that's it. If you like what you heard today, find me on SoundCloud, Twitter, YouTube, and the Facebook. Just type in Sports with Nick Drago. You can also Google me. You might find me. You might not. I'm just kidding. Sports with Nick Drago. You'll find me. Email me as well, sports3xpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to like, comment, share, Twitter my way. Tweet. and all those other things. I actually don't like to Twitter all that much. Email or Facebook works better. We are on Facebook. Facebook definitely works better. All right, I think that's all I have. So that's all I have. Friends, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you next week on our favorite show, Words, 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 with White Privileged Guy. I'm just kidding. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night, day, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. Caw-caw!